Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Max Novak is a young Belgian entrepreneur and founder of Novacast, which is a podcast booking agency. He believes that podcasting can help build your network. Thank you very much for being my podcast guest today, Max.
It's my pleasure to be here, Liz. Happy to be here.
So you're a young entrepreneur, Max, who helps people get booked onto top-rated podcasts. And we'll talk about how you do that in a minute. But what I want to know first is a bit about your past and what you did before. So what did you do at university and straight after that?
Yeah, sure thing. So basically, I've been doing marketing my whole life, right? So I did marketing in a English-speaking school because before that I was in French and in Flemish-speaking schools. And then I was like, let's go in an international school. There I did marketing for 3 years. And weirdly enough, one of the best decisions of my life was not doing a master, but just starting my business. So funnily enough, Novacast is my first ever business, right? And so now it's been running for 2 years, and it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. I absolutely love it. I've learned so much, and I'm happy I did it at such a young age because the learning curve is just so huge.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So what was it that made you realise that you wanted to run your own business?
Well, actually, it's an internship, right? So I did an internship where I was the only marketing person because they did biomechanical lower limb prosthesis.
Okay.
And there I took quite specific, right? And there I took care of the marketing, which is so websites, social media, all that kind of stuff, right? But I really didn't like my boss. And so the decision was made quite naturally. Right after, the day after I got my bachelor's degree, I just went straight into I love podcasting, been listening to it forever. Let's try to do something out of it. And only afterwards, actually, I discovered I was the first and only one in Belgium to do this business. So I discovered let's try to really make something out of this. And since then, it's been just growing and growing along with the passion and the love for podcasting.
So you said you've been going 2 years now. So you must have started in 2020 when the world was kind of a bit of a different place, wasn't it?
Exactly. A lot has changed. And actually, it's quite a coincidence. It had nothing to do with COVID. It's just that I wanted to do a business where I could be like a businessman with my feet in the sand, with my laptop on my knees, right? So it's not, I was never drawn into having a fancy car or a fancy suit with a fancy job. It was really living a certain lifestyle where you can be just a nomad lifestyle, let's say. You know, now I'm in Spain, but I'm always in Belgium most of the time, been to Australia, worked from all around, and I absolutely love it, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a great lifestyle to me. So you said nobody had done what you're doing in your country before. Presumably people were doing something similar in other parts of the world, were they?
Yeah, so there's other podcast booking agencies all over the world, right? So there's a few in New York. I know there's a few independent ones in also in Europe, but there's all over the world. It's just difficult to find a good one, let's say, right? Some are very specific. I'm personally also in a specific niche. I know other podcast booking agencies, they focus, for example, with female-driven entrepreneurs, which is excellent. You know, my sector is more clean tech, sustainability, SaaS, you know. So that's more of entrepreneurship and startups.
So tell me what Novacast does for your clients.
Sure. So basically, our line is that we book leaders and innovators on top-rated podcasts in their niche. We do that by everything is custom made, right? So we hate cold calling, cold emails. That's none of what we do, right? So let me give you an example. For example, you're a young startup and you're the CEO of a clean tech company, right? So you can have an app, for example, that helps in making this place a better world and protecting the wildlife, let's say, right? That's just an example.
Yeah.
But you want to gain more visibility, more credibility, more clients for your app, right? And you've heard a bit about podcasting. You don't know a lot about it, but you do know it can help, right? So let's say you get some interest. We'll jump on a call. I'll explain you all about what Novacast does, which is then research. We really get to learn so that's your challenges, desired outcome, goals, everything, your ICP, very important, right? And then we'll get you on podcasts where your ideal customer persona is listening to. And that we put you in front of the audience we know will be interested in what you have to say, in your knowledge, skills, right? We help you in developing a right call to action. So it's really a all-in-one service, right? We do all the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then we do also the scheduling. So basically, you just have to get a link, get a date, and hop on the interview and speak about what you know best and what you love, right? And that will get you that visibility, that credibility, that social media content. And I could go on the benefits of podcasting, but because there's just so many.
So you take all the difficulty out of getting on podcasts then, and the expert just has to turn up and do what they do best.
Exactly. So we also craft the emailing, all the stuff that requires a bit more expertise. We do that. Now, I also encourage people to go do that by themselves if they can, right? It just takes a lot of time, a lot of expertise. It's a bit difficult, but it's doable, right? We help people who are very busy often. Our clients are very busy people. They have a lot of meetings, a busy schedule. It's difficult to get all these interviews in that scheduling. So we take care of the back and forth with the podcast host, right? We handle all the emails, all the stuff.
So how many businesses have you helped in this way now?
Well, we have quite a few, and what I love the most about this business is that I get to talk with amazing podcast hosts, such as yourself, but also amazing CEOs. That's, the connections, the network, it's immense. I'll talk one day with a Australian CEO that lives up in the mountains, and that has a company of hormone stimulation. The next day, I'll talk with someone in San Diego trying to clean up the beaches, and has a company about that. And the next day, a resilience coach, let's say, that's one, for example, Amanda Hill. She's absolutely amazing. She was a blind lawyer, and then went on to climbing a mountain that's, I think, was 7 kilometers high.
Wow.
Right? So, you get to speak with amazing people every day, and I absolutely love it, right? And so we've had quite a portfolio that's very broad right now. One of my favorite clients also is in the hospitality sector, but he was 22 years old, has 40 employees already, and built an algorithm. So you really get to know interesting people. And that's what I love the most. People are the podcasting community, to me at least, is the best in the world.
Yeah.
I love the people.
And are you still working on your own, or do you have a team working with you now?
So yeah, currently I got 2 VAs that are in the Philippines. Absolutely love them. So they're really the best. And it's been quite a challenge to become a young entrepreneur, but also then a leader, right? So how are you a good leader? How are you kind? How do you motivate? How do you organize? How do you organize their calendars, their schedule? And so now I figured it all out. How do you know when they work? How do you track all that, right? So those are all challenges that I actually loved tackling. So yeah, now we're just a small team of 3 for the moment, but by I think Q2 of 2023, I'm hoping we get at least to like 6-7 VAs, and maybe I'm planning also to set up maybe a small office here in Belgium, because there's also it gains a lot of interest, because it's the first podcast booking agency in Belgium. A lot of people are very interested. I'm just a bit picky, with who I work. I'm a bit difficult on that regard, because I really want very high quality in everything I do, because it's so customer oriented, this business.
Yeah, absolutely. So why would you say it's important to get on podcasts? What are the main reasons that business owners might want to do that?
Oh God, there's so many. Well, you can have this evergreen content. First of all, you can get new clients 2 years after appearing on a podcast, which is just, you just don't get that with Facebook ads.
No,
The day
no.
you don't pay, you start paying for your Facebook ad. Well, you don't get new leads, right? And so with Novacast, you gain strategic visibility, and strategic is important because we get you in front of your ICP. Right, because you can get on any podcast, but if the listeners are not interested in what you have to say, well, then you're not going to get very far,
Yeah.
are you? And then you talk with a highly engaged audience. The engagement is so high. Also in smaller podcasts, right? There's big podcasts that are more centered in comedy, for example. So the engagement rate is not that high. But with smaller ones, it's quite specific, it's quite niche. So it's very high. Then you also create authority, credibility, right? Imagining on your website, you put blog articles, you put your podcast interviews. It's just more content along with your testimonials and case studies that really reinforce your position, right? And then also your potential leads, well, they get to know you, right? They get to know what you're all about, what your mentality is, what you stand for, your mission, your vision. It's not just, you can write whatever you want on your website, but that really, gets a feel. People feel they know you, they know who they're buying from, and that increases the lifetime value of your client. Also, it creates just great connections with podcast hosts, but also you'll get clients coming to you like, hey, I listen to your podcast, love it, right? I got this business, right? So you also create opportunities, not just in clients, but also in B2B related opportunities. And as I said before, you let your ICP get to know you in a person. And the last but not least is that you have fun. I love getting on podcast. I love talking to new people. I love to share what I've gained in terms of knowledge, experience, expertise over the last few years.
Yeah. So how would you say that podcasting and networking are related?
Sure. Well, there's all the benefits of before that are very much related into creating that bigger network, right? But for Novacast, what we've done in terms of getting new clients, for example, might be interesting in terms of getting a bigger network. So I've been using personally a lot of LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn for me has been amazing. I use the Sales Navigator, where I get to engage with a lot of people. And what I love and what I think is very important is that you gotta create a conversation before trying to sell something.
Oh, yes.
Right. So to me, it's all about contacting the right person that might be in a position that they're interested. So I won't go contact Apple, for example, to get on podcast. I know it's going to be impossible, and we always work with C-suite executives, right? So CEOs, CMOs, COOs, people who are very busy. So it's important to really answer a few questions like, is this worth your time? Is this worth your money, your investment, right? So always people, they have a few questions before. Even though I answer everything on my website, people are quite busy. They don't really have the time to go and look up everything on your website. So I do answer all the questions on LinkedIn, and only then I'm like, hey, we could hop on a call and discuss this possible opportunity, right? So it's really about not being too pushy. I hope that's answered the question well, because that's in at least the way I've been really building my network.
And how much has your network grown since you've been doing Novacast?
Well, I'm now at a bit more than 1,000 followers, but you know that I just really started focusing on LinkedIn about a few months ago, right? So getting to 1,000 in a few months was the goal before the end of the year. So we're already way past that, and also it's not really the amount of connections, because I could have just tried to connect with anyone and be at 10,000 or 20,000, but it's really about connecting with the right people.
Yes.
I think that's important, right?
Yes.
So I know I've almost had a conversation with every single person I connected with, which I think is more important. You cannot be satisfy everyone, as I say. No one is for everyone, right? So that's why in the beginning I was like, hey, I don't want to be too niche. I don't want to work like closed doors for myself in terms of clients I work with. But actually doing that, it has helped me a lot, right? Putting myself in a niche has helped me a lot, has given me more focus, more vision, more focus on my mission also. So I think it's highly important.
Yeah. And so once the business owner has been a guest on a podcast, how can they use that asset to grow their network in the in the right area?
Yeah, so I think it's all about sharing it, right? So you gotta, I think on the interview itself also, you gotta have that clear call to action. You gotta share the most information you can, don't hold anything back. You just give it all away for free, and that will attract, because you don't want to hold up like, hey, go on a website to discover what we do. It's like, no, just talk about it. And if people are interested, well, they'll go check it out, and then you can actually really try to see if people are interested in your product or service. Right. And so it's all about sharing it on your network, sharing it with even friends you have. Everybody knows a lot of people, right? And so, yeah, I think social media is a very powerful asset to have, having a highly engaged audience on. For me, I use personally a lot LinkedIn and Instagram a bit. I'm not really on Facebook or on Twitter, but depending on your audience, I think you can really try to discover where your ICP is most and really focus on what works. That's one of the great tips I was given a few months ago. Like, see what worked and focus on that. It's quite simple, actually.
Yes. How would you say that Novacast is different to other booking agencies that are out there?
Well, I think to me, what I've done personally is really having a very customer-oriented approach in everything I do, right? So communication is key. That's our strength, getting the best possible idea of our client's vision so we can work towards exactly that, keeping inside the ICP goals, challenges, and working around the desired outcome. You can ask us any question, anytime. You'll always get an answer within 24 hours. Also, we do everything personalized, so we don't do bulk emails, cold calling, and these other kind of old-fashioned marketing strategies. I think, bulk emails do work. It's just in our business, it really doesn't. Like every email we send has been thoroughly researched. We give thought to every email that gets sent out, because it's also our reputation that's on the line. I don't want to be perceived as just another podcast booking agencies that gets a new client, boom, it's going to send 1,000 emails around. Like, no, we do a custom research with every new client, and only then we'll send a few emails out, right? And I think also success lies in the follow-ups. It's very important. People tend to forget,
Yeah.
Also, I think I like to create win-win situations. So for our client, but also the podcast host, right? So you got to bring very interesting content to the podcast host. So firstly, you get accepted. And secondly, so you get the interest of their audience, right? So we create thoughtful connections. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And so if you love podcasting, I think you kind of understand the intimacy, the natural aspect in the rawness of podcasting, and how it's just like about having natural conversations. And it might be a bit difficult to say this, but to me, podcasting, it's like marketing without the BS, right?
Yeah.
And I've been in it, no offense to marketing people, I've been in it myself like my whole life. I just think podcasting, it has that natural aspect that I really fell in love with. You know, it's like if you're interested, listen to this. It's not like we'll put on a billboard and everyone that crosses that path has to see it, right?
So where do you see podcasting going over the next few years? And obviously it's grown massively over the last few years. Is it going to grow more, do you think?
Well, in the States, it's already quite established. In Australia, there's already quite a few very big podcasts. I think here in Europe, it's quite small, actually, to be honest. I work more internationally, so I'm not like the expert in European podcast, although in Belgium, there's quite a few good ones, but they're not that big, right? I really think we could, there's still a lot of room to grow. I think it's going to get huge, honestly. And I think it's just the very beginning.
Well, it sounds like there's going to be plenty for you to do, Max, over the next few years. If people are interested in finding out more about Novacast, what's the best way for them to contact you?
The best way is just go on novacast.be, not .com, important to note. And there you'll get to know a bit how it works, our pricing, about me. You know, I put a few pictures, also a bit of more explanation about me if you want. And I think it's important that how it works page is I've literally put down everything I explained before, but also like the step-by-step that we do. So it's really about we're transparent. You'll see everything we do until the details. We'll put you set up in Slack where we get your Excel sheet with all the podcasts we are talking to, you've been on, their ratings, you know, you'll get all the details. So yeah, the best way is Novacast to check out our work. Now to contact me personally, just go on LinkedIn and Max Novak is my name. And you'll just find me there. You know, I got a picture with a little orange bulb, quite easy to find.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And I hope that your business continues to go from strength to strength.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.